Hello to the two fans and welcome! This is Chicago Ted coming to you with a very special cast. This is going to be not a normal replay cast, nor is it going to be an actual Dota game. It's instead going to be a high MMR pub match. This is a 7.9 or very close to 8K average MMR Dota match, and I felt, I kind of wanted to get this one rolling, see how it worked. So I'm going to go ahead and drop you guys a nice cast for this. So let me go ahead, make sure everything is all set to go. I should be fine. All right. So for this game, it is going to be on the Dire team. MagE playing the Lion. Kano, who I know is going to be Puppey, is playing the Invoker. We'll call him on the Bounty Hunter, with Weeha playing the Sven, and I'll just call him Faces Void because I can't understand that. Meanwhile, for the Radiant, Green is going to be on the Earthshaker, with Juggernaut being played by Juggernaut. Tiny's playing the Tiny, GH on the IO, and finally 2 on the Enchantress. And throwing it down to the chat, if you guys have any idea who these players are, just let me know, and I'll fix my interpretation of their names. But if you're watching this on the replay, I apologize because I don't know how to pronounce or even read most characters. That's just how it's going to be. So it looks like, as is customary with pub games, we're going to have a little bit of an interesting chat, but for the most part, we'll kind of ignore as we go into the game. Now, we've got an IO Tiny taking on an Invoker mid lane. Now, IO Tiny was very popular at one point in the meta. Invoker is currently very popular in the meta, so it's going to be interesting to see how they match up. We don't see it happen too often, but the point of this is you can get really aggressive with these two with very little risk and a high reward if you can get the toss back. Meaning that the Invoker, with his slow-ish movement speed, is going to have to be very careful about how he positions himself, because he gets caught by a toss. Unless he goes cross Wex, there is not really any way he can just kind of ghost walk and get himself away from that. Now, he can try to turn around with a Forge Spirit Cold Snap combo and look to bring down the IO, which is very possible, but that's kind of where the interesting part of this mid lane matchup lies, is whether or not he's going to actually be able to get a kill like that. So up in the top, 2's having a bit of trouble taking an Earth Spike to the face. They've also got the Storm Hammer, and At's going to come through. Actually, the first blood going to MagE. So 2 will go down in the offlane. Now, he's got a Hellbear up here doing a little bit of return damage, but it's not really going to be enough. Meanwhile, there comes the toss back onto Puppey in the mid lane, but the Tiny and GH are not quite able to deal the damage they need to do to get the final kill. And in the end, it's just going to come out to about half HP on Kano, which he should be able to get back to full with the Quas stacking. However, he drops a salve and is not able to get the full duration off. Didn't quite see what canceled it. I'd be willing to bet it was the Aya with a very cheeky right click coming through, but it could also have been just a range creep that was being very annoying. So as that stands right now, Invoker was able to get away from the first initiation. However, Tiny is still relatively low level at 3, so the damage he's going to be able to do out with the toss and the avalanche may not be substantial enough to follow up with a couple of right clicks. There is going to be a sentry ward dropped in the mid lane, so they know where At is. However, he counters it with his own sentry, quick on the fingers with the Tango to drop down GH's sentry. So he is free to roam here in the mid lane, and Tiny and GH have to play it a little bit further back. Of course, At can drop very quickly to a proper initiation from, or sorry, GH can drop very quickly from a proper initiation from At and follow up from Puppey. Meanwhile, Green's going to rotate in. Now, he did get scouted out by At. This is going to be a tough initiation for him to get off. At's going to follow him down, trying to decipher which one's 0-1, catches it with his right click. So Green will turn and attack, but Kano makes his move in. They know which one it is. The cold snap comes out as the rolling boulder starts, so he's not able to complete it. He gets brought down. Puppey will get credited for the kill, getting himself some nice experience and gold from that one, but still At. These rotations have been on point, which leads to a decently timed level 2. He should be able to get his level 6 if he can continue these rotations. Now, if he stops now and holds in towards the mid lane or isn't really able to do anything, we could probably see him getting that level 6 at around the 12-minute mark, which seems to be standard for a roaming bounty hunter. But if he can keep the pressure on, we might be able to see a level 6 come out at around the 6 to 8 minute mark. And getting it at that time would be huge. But it looks like he will play this one a little bit more passive. The avalanche comes out. The toss back is actually going to be a toss in place. But Green's there with the rolling boulder. They have the push as well. But it's not going to quite be enough. Two's there. Will take out the courier. Kano getting brought down by a spear thrown from Two. Meanwhile, At's trying to run away. And it looks like he will get brought down. Tiny coming through with the last backhand slash. It's actually GH to get the kill. So, I guess it won't be Tiny getting that. Haste Rune will get bottled up, I imagine, by GH. Actually, no. Tiny's going to go ahead and deny the Haste Rune. Maybe figuring either they don't need it or just some cheeky pub plays, which could be very possible. Again, this is a pub, not an actual pro. Well, I guess technically it is a pro match. Green will come through, push back. Kano locked in place. Now they've got the Sunstrike to follow up, trying to do some damage to GH, but it's not going to quite be enough. The Forge Spirit coming through. It's actually At to come through with the last right click to get GH down. MagE comes through, trying to find the kill on Green gets it, but he will drop himself. It's actually At to get the kill on Green. A whole load of action coming through here, and focused in the mid lane. But while this is all going on, Weeha is still farming in the top lane on that Sven, has got his power treads plus 700 gold at the ready, and Juggernaut is also farming. Alright, however, he is being contested by the Faceless Void, who is ahead of him on CS, meaning that this Juggernaut is going to have a little bit of a rougher time than the Sven will at getting the farm out. We can see the net worth reflecting that. Sven is about 500 gold ahead in net worth of the Juggernaut. And that's really not something that you'd like to see, but carry on carry, they are still relatively close. It's not going to mean that much of a difference unless we get to a point where the Sven will be able to get like an early Blink Dagger or something to help him go straight into the jungle, and that's when he'll be able to outfarm the Juggernaut, because he has an innate Battle Fury cleave to go through and clear camps. Juggernaut has to buy a Battle Fury himself. However, Juggernaut will come through and bring down the Faceless Void in the bottom lane with an Omni Slash. So Sven has a higher farming potential. Actually, what build is Sven going for? Is he going Cleave or Stormhammer? He is going the Cleave build, so he's got a higher farming potential, but less kill potential. Juggernaut's the exact opposite. Juggernaut can kill a lot better with his Omni Slash, but his farming is relatively lackluster until he can get his Battle Fury. However, it might not be a Battle Fury build-up. He is going to go into the Phase Boots first. I am feeling a little bit of that lag as well, but Phase Boots first, Akala second. Might be a courier snipe. Ass looking for it, but it is a flying courier. It's not really going to make that much, or it's not really going to make his job easy. Tiny will move in, looking for at least something on Kano, but or Puppey rather, isn't going to be able to get any sort of initiation off, and we'll just kind of walk backwards into At, who they don't see because no sentry ward. Juggernaut has made his way up top. They look to put some pressure on the Weeha, who will go immediately into God Strength, and with a Stormhammer, looking to bring down the Jug, and can get it! MagE comes through with a beautiful Earth Spike to get the follow-up there, and meanwhile, GH will move in with the rest of his team. They bring down Puppey in the mid lane. So, you win some, you lose some, if you're the Dire. Weeha takes a gank and is able to turn it right around, gets the enemy carry down to further his lead, and net worth now almost 1,000 ahead, but they lose Puppey in the mid lane. Invoker definitely has a way to farm to come back here, but losing mid to an IO Tiny is pretty standard when the IO Tiny gets run. That's why I was really interested to see if the Invoker would be able to do any better than historic matchups against this. But it seems like, yeah, the IO Tiny has proved to be a little bit too much for him to handle, or at least the IO Tiny plus Earth Spirit rotations. I mean, you can never factor out green as a huge influencer in most of these mid-game engagements. So, as far as it stands right now, I wouldn't say either team is too far ahead, and the gold graphs agree with me. It's staying within about 1,000 net worth advantage of either team. We're at about 500 now in advantage of the Dire. Experience a little different. Dire will hold on to a sizable 1,500 or just shy of experience advantage. despite being at the kill deficit, interesting enough. But Radiant may try to put a dent in that lead. It's nothing too substantial. 8.5 minutes, having about a 1,000 to 2,000 lead in either gold or experience is pretty standard. Usually teams will have that, and doesn't always indicate whether or not the team will win. Now, it might have a statistical impact on their win percentage, but for right now, we won't focus too heavily on that. We'll instead see the convergence out into the Juggernaut in the top lane, but Weeha's not quite able to follow up. Plus, when he's got Blade Fury up, you've got to be really careful about your initiations. Just throwing a Stormhammer at him will probably have a very low success rate. So, the push on top, not really going to make all that much now. The Radiant did end up bringing down the top tier 1 tower. They might also get the mid tier 1, which will close that gold gap that we saw earlier, and in fact, probably put it at now a gold lead for the Radiant, as a green will make his move up with a rolling boulder onto MagE, but runs straight into Kano as well. Will get brought down. MagE will drop, or rather get tossed up, but GH looking to bring him down. The relocate out will save GH's life, and well, Tiny will go in for the backhand slap onto to get the kill. So the Radiant, I imagine, will now be pulling out a sizable gold and experience lead, as is such. Well, the experience actually in favor of the Dire, but there's going to be a toss avalanche combo onto Weeha. Turns for a Stormhammer and is able to survive through it all, but the Urn taking him away. They've also got the spirits to throw in his face, so GH will be able to get the kill onto Weeha, who up to this point has been doing fantastic this game, but now dropping to the Tiny will put him only about 200 gold ahead of the Tiny, and about 600, 700 ahead of the Juggernaut. Not really where he wants to be considering his start, as the Juggernaut will put some pressure onto the top tier 2. Down by the bottom, Rune, Puppey again getting taken out. Tiny proving to be too strong. MagE will get chased down. They've got plenty of ways to chase him, and they'll get him via the toss onto GH. Will reveal himself. They come through with a Chronosphere, locking all three in place, securing the kill onto GH. However, this puts the Faceless Void in a really bad spot. He'll get avalanche tossed and brought down. Not quite able to initiate here, a little bit too scared of the Tiny. And he drops a Sentry Ward, looking for a count. What is he hitting? I didn't even see that Sentry Ward. They come out with a Dust, though. They're looking for the Avalanche, but still a little bit too fast. The Push Boulder, or Boulder Smash, will not be able to connect. The Avalanche does, though. Still not quite enough damage. Now Tiny on the run. They've got the Shuriken. Bounces to green, but it looks like the only one to go down so far will be the Tiny. Meanwhile, Isle creaming I imagine down by the rune spot. We can see where he went down. Actually, right in here. Wherever that happened. GH, though, will get brought down as well. So it's a 2-for-1. The Tiny both going down. Though you can kind of call it a little bit more, because multiple Dire heroes did fall there over the course of that engagement. Still, I would imagine Dire quite happy to bring down that powerful mid lane combo that has been giving them so much trouble up to this point. We can take a look at where Weeha's at. Remember that max cleave build is going to give him plenty of ways to farm up. He has now started to put a little bit more into his actual Stormhammer, which will give him some attacking potential. As far as team fights go, that is a pretty decent magical burst, but it may be a little too late to start farming or start putting some points into that one. Now, you want to max it out. At this point, it's alright to max it out and not end up just forgetting about it altogether, because the nuke is still pretty sizable in the grand scheme of things, so it's good to have it. There's going to be a Dust out on They'll bring him down in fantastic fashion, too. I mean, all four, or at least 4 of the 5 of the Radiant side, were there to get that kill. Meanwhile, Juggernaut's putting some pressure onto the top tier 2 tower. They get it down and make their move down towards the mid lane, where we can see just south of that, the Dire are attempting Roshan with Puppey, putting his 4 spirits in the mix, dealing a lot of damage on his own. They should be able to get this Roshan down before Radiant are any the wiser. They get it, but the initiation from the Radiant is already out onto Weeha and to MagE. They get the Avalanche toss combo onto both of them. The toss onto MagE. They'll bring both down. Now the Faceless Void has to get himself away, but Kano might not be too lucky. Puppey actually getting away alive as well. With the TP out, there wasn't any way to cancel that, as Tiny's Avalanche was just on cooldown. So Radiant, they'll lose the Roshan, they get 2 for it, but they're not quite able to bring down the Aegis, not yet, at least. Though they will start to put some pressure onto the mid-tier 2 tower, getting a sizable amount of damage onto this one. Now it'll be down to about half HP, as 2 will make his way in towards the mid lane, looking to try to catch someone out that's being a little bit aggressive, but ultimately doing a good job at cutting the creep wave and just being a general annoyance as the mid-tier 2 goes down. Still, 2 outer towers left on the Dire squad, and it looks like the next target will be the bottom tier 1. So the Radiant, they're not stopping this pain train. They want to get as much gold in the next couple of minutes as possible. Dire, they need to find a way to stop this. They'll catch green, green, green alone, and this should be an easy kill. The Finger of Death from MagE committed to get that kill, and so it will be on cooldown for a decent amount of time. However, the Chronosphere is up and ready to go. If they can find multiple heroes, the Radiant thus back themselves away. They are without their Earth Spirit. They're holding GH into the trees. They're holding Tiny pretty far back as well. If any initiation happens onto any one of them, the other 2 will be able to decide whether they want to counter-initiate or just back off. So spreading out like this is not too much of an issue. 2 will make his way in, though, looking for Puppey. The Earth Spike out. In comes the Tiny. Avalanche Toss will bring down MagE quickly. 2 is already dead. Tiny taking a bit of damage. The Relocate will bring him out safely and will secure the death of GH. Weeha will even come in for this one. Gold's gold right now as he goes for the Helmet of Dominator armlet build. They actually bring Tiny back. They'll get the track on a Tiny. He cannot run away from this one. He's trying to go through the trees. His movement speed is good, but it's not quite enough. The toss back will buy him some time, but it's not going to be quite enough. Green, green, green also comes in to attempt to fight, but he is brought down very quickly thereafter. I mean, they only had to bring GH back, and that would have secured at least just 1 kill for the Radiant, or 1 kill for the Dire. But they bring Tiny back. They move green, 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 and they think they're able to fight it, but they weren't. And as such, they get pretty much wiped. Juggernaut still was able to survive through this one. However, he's being scouted out by At. In comes the Shuriken Toss. Puppey's there. He'll pop the Blade Fury to get off the track, as well as prevent Puppey from initiating. And so the Blade Fury will secure him some time. The movement speed from Juggernaut is pretty huge. He's looking for something here, but isn't quite able to find it. Dire will back off. Weeha backing off at relatively low HP, probably courtesy of the armlet. But now the Radiant might look to try to put another push onto this bottom tier 1 tower, secure some free gold. As the lines get drawn, they're looking for At. They figure they know where he is. Do they have a dust? Are they going to pop one randomly out? Looks like At will call the movement and back away from any chance of Radiant initiating onto him. He actually at one point walks over the Radiant Sentry Ward, but it's not quite close enough. Or they weren't quite close enough to see it. They drop a sentry of their own. It's going to be, as we just noticed, just barely out of range of the Radiant Sentry, which is about to go down soon anyway, so they don't really have to worry about it at all. The Radiant, though, will smoke up with 1 Mud Golem and green, green. They're looking for anyone farming up the jungle, but it's just 2 of the Radiant. This is a very aggressive maneuver for just 2 Radiant, as in comes the Tiny. GH is there. They relocate. They look for the Avalanche. They get it off onto Weeha. They also come in with the Omni Slash. They've got plenty of damage to bring Weeha down. I mean, this is the trouble with a Sven pre-BKB, is he can just get stun locked and kited around. Puppey on the run, moving a bit too slowly for comfort. He drops his Aegis Immortality. The Dire, they might look for the counter initiation, but they're not quite close enough. They'll TP in, but Puppey pretty much is already dead. The Chronosphere out, but the Blade Fury still hitting through it. The Faceless Void not able to follow up with too much damage. The Finger of Death on the green, green, but it's not enough. The blink in, MagE Avalanche tossed and brought down. The Radiant once again pulling back. They had a bit of a bad team fight not too long ago, but that'll be followed up immediately with a 4-man wipe, only losing GH. Only survivor is the Faceless Void. It's looking like GH, though, will TP up into the top lane, get some solo experience and gold from the lane that is pushing in quite a bit. He will have his relocate up in 20 seconds, so this gives the Dire a bit of a grace period where the Radiant are without their IO. And even if he has to relocate in, that only gives 10 seconds of fight time for the Radiant. But that's plenty, considering the last couple of fights. They aren't even going to have to take it, as the tier 2 tower is dropping a little bit too quickly. There's going to be a toss back on the Faceless Void. He doesn't have enough time to time walk out. He'll get brought down. The silence from Green was on point, and now he does have buyback, 50 seconds on the board if he doesn't want to use it. And this gives the Radiant plenty of time to push, so he might just have to. His Chronosphere is not up for 36, so it might not even be worth it to buy back at this point. The tower, it has not taken any damage. The Radiant might want to be very careful about pushing this. The split push out from Weeha. They'll pop into God Strength, turn around, get his Stormhammer off before the Avalanche comes out. But the Stormhammer will run out the Avalanche through the trees. They catch him. They get him. And in comes the Impetus Strikes. His armor is helping him for now, but it's not going to keep him alive. He'll get brought down. Meanwhile, Puppey will find Green, who was left for dead on the bottom lane. But I mean, Weeha for Green, not that bad of a trade, considering Faceless Void also went down in the midst of all that. 20 minutes in, we're looking at a 23-16 kill score at the moment. I mean, we can consult the grabs, but I'm pretty sure the Radiant are at a decent advantage. Only about 2,000 gold, actually about 500 to 1,000 experience. So decent in that it's still very shallow of an advantage, but it's an advantage nonetheless. Now, they might walk into App, but they don't quite have vision for him, so he kind of, heart stops for a second, and then realizes they have no idea he's there, and they'll walk right past him. Meanwhile, Sven is going really early game here, opts not to get the Blink Dagger instead, goes for the Sanjin Yasha's hat. Now he's in trouble, walks underneath the Sentry Ward, and gets brought down, and Magnetize was committed for that kill. But it's almost as if he's saying, yeah, we don't want you here. We are willing to commit everything for you just to make sure you die. Because there was a chance he could have walked outside of that Sentry Ward. And do they have any dusts on their team? It doesn't look like it. So the Sentry was all they had to bring him down. Why not drop everything to just make sure he's dead? So the Dire will try to split push a bit, throwing Faceless Void onto the bottom lane. But Weeha can't really have that luxury. The mid and top are both occupied by Radiant heroes. So if he were to go and try to split push, he'd be begging for trouble almost. He does have significant counter push though, so he can wait for the waves to come up onto his high ground and push him out that way. But the bottom lane split push has forced the Tiny to go back, meaning that the Radiant are without their heavy damage dealer, and as such can't exactly push for now. So Weeha will continue to farm up here. Some of the item buildups right now coming out from the Dire team. We've got a 4-staff urn. What looks to be a Greaves buildup now from At, which is pretty standard as, oh, hold that thought, Weeha getting initiated on. Can they get enough lockdown to hold him in place for these impetuses to come through? The Chronosphere out. Green, Sunstrike to follow up, but they're not quite able to kill him just yet. He will drop to the Finger of Death. Meanwhile, the Tiny to relocate in. They're looking for MagE, but they're not quite able to get the damage off. The 4-staff saving his life. Back on the Faceless Void, 2 and Juggernaut are looking to bring him down, but in comes the Tiny with the Avalanche, or with just the toss rather, to hold him in place. They're able to get the kill. Weeha and Faceless Void both will drop. The only collateral is Green, which again is a very good trade for the Radiant squad. So now Radiant might be thinking about a push here. Weeha does not have buyback. Faceless Void does. But again, this is no Chronosphere Faceless Void if he does buy back, so it really isn't worth it for him. In the end, though, there isn't going to be any forced high ground, so buybacks will not be necessary. At will start to throw out some tracks, though has to be really careful. There is no silencer in this group, or at least silencer in terms of someone who can silence, not the hero. Green is the quote-unquote silencer for the Radiant, so actually, Green will drop the Sentry Ward. He can call out where approximately he is, but he guesses wrong on the second sentry. However, the dust comes through. 222 will move through. They look out for the stun. They aren't quite able to get it off, just barely off the mark. So green guesses twice, misses both. And that will mean At gets himself away. And times like that, you really can't afford to not be right. So, Puppey, as well as the rest of his squad, will make a move. It looks like they want to try to put some pressure. I don't know if they know that Tiny's pushing the bottom lane out, but even if they are able to find an initiation onto him, they're not going to be able to kill him. The relocate will bring him out. They instead, though, find a Roshan. Radiant should be able to get this one, and that'll put an Aegis, I imagine, onto the Tiny, who is already looking at a Hyperstone. Could be either the Moon Shard or the Assault Cuirass build-up. Historically, either one could work. The relocate out, though, they stop the Roshan, looking for a little bit of a detour into Weeha land, get the kill, and then, I mean, it's back to Roshan for them. It's almost dead. Now, the Dire, they have every idea this is going on now. But will they be in time to stop it? Roshan is within a couple of swipes. However, in comes the Faceless Void. The Chronosphere is down. Can they even go for the Roshan, or are they going to go for the kills? It looks like they'll bring 2 down, but Tiny's isolated in the pit. The Time Walk up. They're looking for GH. Can they get this? The track's up. They have every idea he's there. Now the Tiny on the run. Roshan will drop to the Dire. The Aegis will go to Puppey. And comes the Juggernaut, though. The time dilation will mean that, actually, it doesn't go through the Blade Fury, so they'll change targets to MagE. The toss back, or at least a toss up on the Faceless Void will get the kill. The Bowler will bring down MagE, though Puppey will be able to get green for his greed. Tiny, though, still looking. He might be able to find an initiation onto Puppey, but for now, it's not going to happen. Puppey does have the Aegis, so we'd have to worry about 2 Invokers, or 2 Puppies, rather than 1. And if you're a pet owner, you know 2 Puppies are a little bit hard to deal with. A lot of energy. And you don't have a lot of patience. It gets rough, but the Radiant will now push up to the top lane. Still having some decent team fights. I mean, they lost the Roshan, but they got 3 for their trouble. I mean, Weeha did go down from that relocate. It leads you to question whether or not the relocate onto Weeha was worth it for losing the Aegis when they did. But it certainly didn't hurt getting Weeha down, putting him further and further back. The only thing you really have to concede is a little bit of gold, a little bit of experience to the Dire, as well as an Aegis. So I'll let you guys be the judge on whether or not it was worth it. For me, I'd say it's totally worth it, considering they also were able to get a couple more kills around the pit despite losing the Roshan. But that Aegis could mean the Radiant can't really push for another couple of minutes until either the Aegis is down or the second Roshan or the next Roshan comes up and they get an Aegis for themselves. That's going to look to the bottom lane, though. They might look to bring the Juggernaut down. They get the track off. If he TP's out now, he's safe. But he'll just drop the healing ward and go right back to lane. Actually, the diffusel's off the track, so they don't even know if he's TP'd out or not. The Radiant, though, will move in. They don't really have the vision to walk right up, but the Avalanche out. Can they counter-initiate onto this one? It looks like the Dire are going to force the issue, go out onto the Tiny. They've used everything to bring 2 down. The relocate out on the Tiny, though, will get him away, but it leaves green for dead once again. Where's the relocate? They ping it out. They know where the IO comes back. So he is going to be able to get the tether off onto the Tiny, who is still there, tracked up, but to the north. Now, Faceless Void doesn't have a Chronosphere back in the lines. They're going to try to go in for the Juggernaut. They get the Hex onto him, but he still has Omni Slash still alive coming out. Now onto Puppey. They get a lot of damage off, but he isn't able to secure the kill. He'll blink away immediately after the Omni Slash ends. At will continue chasing, looking for the Shuriken, trying to bring down the Juggernaut, but the Blade Fury will keep him alive. All the while, Weeha's been pushing up the top lane, isn't able to get that much damage onto the tier 3 tower, but still enough to force him back a little bit. So, Aegis will go away in about 2 minutes, which means, well, we don't know what the randomized timer is just yet, so we can't call when it will be back up, but it'll be back up between 5 and 8 minutes. Not too bad, considering that's when you imagine the Radiant will want to push, if they're not just waiting for the Aegis to go away. It's very possible that they're just waiting for Puppey to lose that Aegis and then push, but GH will get brought down. Of course, Puppey with the Sunstrike kill secured. And with GH down, that means the Tiny can't really split push effectively. He's relying on the IO for the relocate out if things get hairy, but it looks like he'll instead have the rest of his team move up. They're looking for MagE. They blink forward, Diffusal Blade out, Blade Fury in. They've got the Avalanche toss, and that is an easy kill for the Radiant to get, though it still is a technically support for support trade. Not the greatest thing in the world, but they could look for more. They're all here. They'll instead send Tiny back to base with a TP scroll, looking to counter Weeha's push, who, I gotta say, at this point in the game has been fantastic at stopping the Radiant from pushing too hard. This constant split push means they have to either return or risk one of their tier 3s going down and their Raxes getting exposed. So at this point in time, it's really good that Weeha's able to do this. We have seen him get punished a little bit, get brought down 1 or 2 times for this split push, but for the most part, he's been very successful at keeping a lane pushed in. 2, meanwhile, once again, walks into the entirety of the Dire. Looks like he will get brought down, but as a BKB forced out from Puppey, putting it on cooldown, more importantly, sending it to 9 seconds. Avalanche comes through, the toss is out, they get at very quickly. There's going to be a deafening blast, stopping them from attacking for now, but it looks like it's not going to quite be enough to send them back, actually, with Puppey retreating. Doesn't seem like Radiant want to engage any further. They will just go to the bottom lane and push out that way. Blink will get completed now, finally from the Faceless Void, as he has a viable way at initiating that isn't Time Walk. That gives him a way to either escape much more cleanly or otherwise. So they'll come through with the rolling boulder, green out. They're looking to bring down the Faceless Void. The silence is proving to be a bit too much for him. However, he's able to survive through it. The EMP's down. They pop a Dust Throw. They've got constant view of Puppey. However, the Chronosphere stops the Tiny from moving. It only stops him, though. Meanwhile, in the action, Faceless Void looking for the TP out. Can they get this kill? Looks like they can. The toss canceling the TP. 2 dead right now on the Dire team. Radiant not losing anything. Puppey lost the Aegis not too long ago. In fact, he lost it about a minute ago. And as such, he was not able to really force the issue that much in the fight. Why does he have illusions here? I don't know. I'm not even going to worry about that. It's the Dire now. Pushing out, but they do see the Radiant by the Secret Shot. The Tornado up, Ice Wall down. All the while, Weeha's been pushing up the top lane here, getting a little bit of damage off onto it. However, the relocate's coming through. The TP is actually coming through. Weeha might be in a bit of trouble, but he's going to pop a BKB, turn around now onto GH. One more swipe, but he loses it. The mechanism. Wasn't really expecting it. Thought he had the kill, but ended up not. Now the BKB's going to run low. Juggernaut comes through and comes to Tiny as well. They get the damage off. And Weeha will get brought down. Puppey using the space with At to push out the mid lane. This constant pressure keeping the Radiant from being able to get a solid push out anywhere. But getting kills like this is really, really troublesome for the Dire team, considering the Radiant, they've got 35 kills. They're about 11 kills ahead of the Dire team. And it reflects, I mean, in the experience at least, they've got 2,500 experience advantage. All the split pushing has given the Dire quite a bit of a gold advantage, about 4K. But the fact that the Radiant have been able to keep this experience advantage, have been able to find their kills, is, again, it's troublesome for the Dire. It means that this is a little bit less of an advantageous game for them. And it also means that it's a very even game. All the Dire Radiant really have to do is get a solid push off. They've got the power to get a Rax. They've just got to get to the point where they can take the Rax. And this split push has been slowing things down a bit, but it certainly is possible considering they have relocates to move in, get a quick kill elsewhere on the map, and then return for the push if need be. As of right now, though, the split push hasn't really come out from anything other than Forge Spirits. They've been working against the Radiant squad, keeping the bottom lane in, but there is no hero to further push this one. There are boots of travel, though, on the Dire if they need to force the issue. It looks like Radiant aren't not going to take the risk. They're just going to go back and stop this push in its tracks. That gives Weeha plenty of time to move to the top lane now and get his split push rolling that way. which, I mean, once again, you keep all these lanes pushed out. They still have an IO Tiny. They can relocate right onto him if need be. But for now, they'll push out the bottom lane. Now, the Dire, they do start to converge in the top lane. This is a little bit trouble, considering if the Dire lose a fight here, they'll lose more than 2 or 3 heroes. And they don't really have, I mean, their split pushers are all in this top lane. If both Puppey and Weeha go down, there isn't any way for the Dire to stop the pushes altogether. Now, buybacks considered, they both have buyback at the ready. But it looks like the IO Tiny are going to force what the Dire have been forcing all this time and push out the top lane. They'll force Puppey to TP back, but the rest of the Dire are still in this mid lane. They'll come through with the boulder. Weeha getting stunned. No real follow-up just yet. They've got to be wary of the possible Chronosphere counter initiation. The Chrono comes down though. All that they have to really do damage is a Finger and a Sunstrike, maybe a Shuriken. Weeha can't exactly go into the Chrono unless the Faceless Void is able to catch one of them on the edge, in which case Weeha can hit someone and hope the cleave comes through. For right now, it looks like both teams are waiting for the Roshan that's up in 10 seconds. More like 15, I guess. So the Radiant will move in the bottom lane. Weeha is going to be counter pushing up the top, which means, again, they try to take Roshan. Weeha forces the issue on the top lane. This is an exposed rack, so there isn't anything to push back this creep equilibrium. They instead have to constantly sacrifice damage on their racks. They've got to make a decision. Do they come back and defend, or do they go for the Roshan? It looks like they're making... okay, they are going to go back. And no, that's Puppey. He's going to go in and force the racks. Now the TPs have to come back, but the melee is already pretty much dead. He'll pop the BKB. There is no stun to follow up. Melee racks has been ratted out. They've got to dust onto him. They should be able to chase him down, but if they chase him too far, can he turn around? It looks like no. The rest of them are converging in. Puppey will go down, but it's Puppey for a racks. He doesn't have buyback, though. Interesting enough. The Radiant, they draw their circle in the mid lane. Actually, Weeha doesn't have buyback either. They get a fight at the Roche Pit. They may actually be able to counter racks, if not straight up win the game. So it looks like they are going to force the issue here. But there are no creeps to block or at least bring down backdoor protection. Oh man, this this Helm of the Dominator creep from Weeha is keeping the creeps from pushing up in the mid lane. That buys so much time for Puppey to come back. It looks like the Radiant, they can't really force the issue anymore. They've got to go in for the Roshan attempt. And they know that the Dire's around, so they've got to be very careful of this. They don't also probably... The fact that they're being so careful makes me want to think that they don't think that Puppey's buyback is up, but they also have to be very careful of the Chronosphere initiation. So whether or not Puppey comes back up, there still is a way for the Dire to fight in the pit. And a very powerful way at that, so... In the meantime, it looks like neither team will go for it. Plenty of time has been bought for Puppey to return into this game. 36 minutes in now. And it's not looking like either team has a significant way to end this game. I mean, again, the Radiant's push is great, but so is the Dire's, really. And the Dire have well, both teams really have split push potential. So even if one team wins a fight, it doesn't necessarily mean that the game is won, unless it's a 5-man wipe and both split pushers are really down. But for the moment, looks like Radiant will now initiate into the pit. There is no vision really into the pit for the Dire, but they've got vision around the pit from the Reserve Ward on the high ground. So Tiny will go in, they'll drop down, it looks like maybe trying for a Chronosphere, they'll instead throw the Tornado, so they're not able to lock them in too long. But the TP's back now. That's actually Puppey once again split pushing out, forcing the issue and actually going in for the mid-tier 3. He'll drop down a nice wall, looking to drop in green, but in comes the damage out. Even if he pops BKB, he's still dead, so he'll hold on to it. Whether or not he even had the chance to use it is to be determined, but Juggernaut left for dead in the mid will get brought down, or at least by the bottom room. That opens up the Roshan for the Dire. The ranged racks also probably going to go down the top, if not from this wave. Once again, the creep equilibrium has no natural pushback on the Radiant side because of the lack of the power. Weeha going in now for the Tiny, who pops the BKB, will toss Weeha back onto the Faceless Void. But they actually get Tiny down very low. Green will get dropped. They've got a gem on the ground, but it doesn't look like anyone's looking to bring it, or at least take it. They're going to try to look to bring it down too. They'll get the Hex onto him. They get him down. The Courier on the Radiant side also going down, though the IO Tiny combo is able to pop the Aegis on the Faceless Void, who will still look in. He wants to get this Tiny. He got the Chronosphere onto him. Just needs one more hit. They actually throw in with a Shuriken bouncing off of the IO. Tiny has to buy back, but everyone from the Dire is ready to push this one. They've got 2 more buybacks on the side of the Radiant. Both green, and the Juggernaut have got it ready to go. So the Dire can try to force the issue. Oh, is it an RTZ? Looks like the Invoker's RTZ. My bad. Power. Now under a lot of pressure here. Taking quite a bit of damage. I'll just call him Kano from here on out. Maybe just make it easier. Weeha pushing in to this Rax, but it's not going to quite be enough yet. Pop his own BKB, but he's taking way too much damage. He's actually turning it right around. His lifesteal is accounting for everything that the Tiny can do. He's taking a bit from the impetus, though. He might get brought down, but not before clearing out both Juggernaut and green. Tiny now moving in. The buyback has come out from Weeha. They'll come in with a tornado through the Chronosphere. The IO Tiny, they can't die. Tiny did buy back in the last engagement. He's down 120 on the board. Green's trying to come back into the fray, but the Juggernaut, he's also bought back. He is gonna get brought down as well. He survives just barely. Though the Time Walk forward, the Diffusal Blade, he's down. Green on the run too as well, but the Dire is just moving in too quick for their comfort. The Sunstrike will get 2. Who buys back? Green bought back in the last engagement, or at least bought back, so he is dead for a while now. Weeha dropping all of his items as a taunt, and 2 will get brought down. So at the moment, that is a wipe. The Radiant have nothing to defend the tier 4 towers, so the Dire are free to leisurely and totally bring down the Radiant's base. What the? Weeha. Don't ruin the Dota buff, dude. Don't ruin Dota buff. He's planting all the trees. These are mango trees. They're dropping mangoes. Quite a good harvest, actually. Ancient will drop, and so the 8K game comes to an end. Guys, you've been watching the Chicago.TED pubcast of an 8K game featuring RTZ, Bulba, Weeha. I want to say Puppey was in this game, but I have no idea who it possibly could be. So I'm just going to leave it at that. I'll let you guys decipher who is who. I'll maybe put it in the description of this video, whatever the case. But that is the pub game for now. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll catch you all next time.